Hey, it's Brad. Obviously, Iran attacked Israel last night, and I was watching the news last night and watching it again this morning, and there's a lot of hot takes out there, and most of them are out there flapping. So I thought I'd give my own hot take. Before I start, I want to give out a few definitions so we're all on the same sheet of music here. Number one, when you attack another opponent, you usually do it for three different reasons. You'll do it for counter force, counter value, or counter leadership. Counter force is when you're attacking their military infrastructure. So if you see tanks, you blow up the tanks. If you see missile strikes, you blow up the missiles. What we're doing to the Houthis inside Yemen right now, they're launching missiles into the straits there. That's all counter force. We see them load up some missiles, we blow up the missiles. Counter values, when you hit something that they value, it's not necessarily militarily. So you blow up oil fields, you blow up the ball bearing factory. Nuclear war would be like, if you attack me, we're going to blow up New York City. It's not a military relation, but we value it. So that's counter value. And the last is counter leadership. When you target some opponent's leadership, you're specifically looking at opponent leadership to take them out away from the battlefield. The next thing is the embassy and consulate in international law. I mean, everybody knows what an embassy is. They've all seen Jason Bourne. A lot of people don't realize that an embassy is considered by international law sovereign terrain of the person who owns it. So like our embassy in Amman, Jordan, the American embassy is considered American terrain. It just as well may be in Texas. If you do something against it, it's just like attacking Texas or Florida or wherever. The Quds Force. Now, everybody talks about the axis of resistance. They all talk about that Iran is providing material support to the Houthis, to Hamas, to the Hezbollah in Lebanon. But nobody really talks about how they do that. Well, they do it through the Quds Force. The Quds Force is their paramilitary force that goes around this region doing the training, doing the providing arms, providing missiles, logistical stuff, that kind of thing. General Soleimani, the guy we killed in 2020 in Baghdad, he was the head of the Quds Force, which is why we got rid of him. He was coordinating all these activities. Okay, so the events leading up to the attack. So Israel's been doing attacks inside Syria, airstrikes in Syria for years, for decades. They've been attacking inside Syria, generally against the Quds Force activities, but it was all counter force stuff. So they were always, if they see them bringing in a shipment of missiles, they'll blow the shipment up. If they find there's some factory that's making mortars or IEDs or whatever, they'll blow the factory up. They didn't do any counter leadership stuff against Iran itself. Now, of course, they took out a bunch of Hezbollah guys, but generally the Iran leadership was off limits. They had plenty of times to take out Soleimani when he was in Syria. They never did it just because that was too high a bar to cross. Then, of course, we did it in Baghdad. But after October 7th, they began doing counter-leadership campaign. After October, the massacre that Hamas did, that Iran had funded Hamas, gloves came off and they started doing counter-leadership stuff. The first guy they killed was General Razi Mousavi. He was a Quds Force logistician inside Syria. He was a general in the Iranian army, and they killed him. Then on 1 April, they took out Brigadier General Mohammed Zahedi. He was the Quds Force commander of Syria and Lebanon. Big wig coordinating Hezbollah and coordinating all these attacks against Israel. They took him out along with 6 other guys, including the deputy commander, a bunch of generals. The bad thing was they did it inside these guys were inside the Iranian embassy. A consulate next to the embassy, but the consulate's considered the same thing, the annex basically. So they blew them all up and killed them all. Now, that is against international law. You're not allowed to attack an embassy by international law because you're attacking the sovereign country that owns that embassy, unless the embassy is being used for military purposes, in which case it becomes a military target. Now, there's no doubt that Brigadier General Zahedi and his crew are definite military targets. There's nothing wrong with hitting them. The problem was they did it in an embassy. Now, Israel will say those guys were planning attacks against Israel. That made it a military target. And I fully believe that's true. But Iran can say, no, they weren't. They were just visiting. For instance, if General Kurilla, our CENTCOM commander, visits the American embassy in Amman, Jordan, that doesn't mean he's doing military planning. He's just doing a visit. You're not allowed to attack the embassy. So Iran can say it's a gray area. They can sit there and say, no, they were just visiting. Nobody really knows what they were doing there because they're all dead. And so Iran then said, you just struck Iran. You basically hit our embassy, so you basically hit Iran. And they said, we're going to respond right after that happened. Now, they have domestic constituents themselves. They've got all the Iranian people who are up in arms because Israel just killed a bunch of generals. And so they said they're going to retaliate, but they couldn't do it through their proxies. Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis gives Iran plausible deniability. So when anytime those guys do something, Iran says, hey, that wasn't us, that's those guys, even though we all know that they're the ones supporting them, they're the ones telling them what to do. So in this case, the reverse had to happen. They couldn't have Hezbollah do the strike and then say, hey, we got you. It had to come from Iran. Now, the first thing I thought they were going to do, they would do a tit-for-tat attack. So the Abraham Accords, Israel's made inroads in a bunch of different countries, Bahrain, inside UAE. For instance, in UAE, there's a new embassy in Abu Dhabi, and there's a consulate in Dubai. I thought that consulate in Dubai is ripe for an attack. The IRGC, the general said that, UAE is supporting Israel and, all gloves are off and all that. And I thought, boy, they're going to hit that thing with a missile. But they didn't. They chose to strike Israel itself, and they did it in a pretty ineffectual way. Now, you hear a lot of people on TV now saying that, no, it wasn't ineffectual. It's just the air defenses were so great that Israel or Iran couldn't get done what they wanted to do. I understand why they have to say that, because they're trying to de-escalate everything, but you can't, you're not going to sit there and say, nana, nana, boo-boo, you guys are pathetic, try again. So they say, they tried to kill them. But the truth of the matter is, they gave us 72 hours notice it was coming. They told us it was coming from Iran, and then they sent everything in waves. Now, if you want to defeat an air defense system, there's basically two different ways to do it. Number one, you evade the air defense system, which if you've seen Top Gun Maverick, they're going down the canyon because all the SAMs are aimed up high. They're evading the air defense system. Number two is you overwhelm the air defense system, which is what Russia is doing in Ukraine. So if I have a missile that can take out your missile, I'll shoot 2 missiles. Now I have 2 missiles that can take out 2, I'll send 4 missiles. Well, in Ukraine, they'll send 120 drones against a single target. The Ukrainians can take out a ton of those drones, but some are going to get through. They overwhelm the defenses. In this case last night, they sent over 300 different weapon systems between drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles, and most of them were taken out before they even reached Iranian airspace. They had, I think, 180 drones. Not a single one reached Iranian airspace. They sent 30 cruise missiles. 25 were destroyed outside Iranian airspace. 99% of the stuff they sent in was destroyed. And it's because, number one, they said 72 hours in advance, we're launching from Iran. So all the ADA systems were focused on Iran. General Kurilla, our own CENTCOM commander, visited Israel to coordinate this. And then number two, when they launch, it takes an hour to get from Iran to Israel. So they've got a full hour to watch this stuff coming in and track it. Number three, they send it in waves. So instead of overwhelming a pinpoint strike, they said, here's wave number 1, take it out. Here's wave number 2, take it out. Here's wave number 3, take it out. If they really want to do some damage, they could have launched everything at a single pinpoint target, not the breadth of Israel that you saw struck. So they were striking all up and down. So not any single node was overwhelmed. They could have sent everything against a single node, say Tel Aviv, say the Israeli Pentagon, and fired 300 different sorties directly at it at the same moment in time. That would have gotten through. There's only so much you can do, and they didn't do that. So I don't believe they were really trying to cause a bunch of damage. They were trying to say, yeah, look what we did for their own domestic constituents without starting a wider regional war. Having said that, that's just nothing to seize at. I mean, Iran attacked Israel. That is basically a declaration of war. Israel cannot let that stand. They do not want to normalize Iran's ability to attack Israel. They don't want to say, okay, fine, you hit us. You've launched missiles into Israel. We have never launched missiles into Iran, but that's okay. No harm, no foul. They're going to have to respond. I don't know how they're going to respond, though. They have to do something escalatory to say that this is in response to you attacking us, and it has to be higher than what they've ordinarily done. Well, a strike in Syria, I mean, the whole thing that precipitated this was a strike in Syria. They blew up a nuclear reactor in Syria. They've done all kinds of stuff outside of Iran itself. So it's not a big enough step to say, look what we did, because they've been doing that for decades. On the other hand, a direct strike into Israel very well could precipitate a wide regional conflict, which would be an existential threat to Israel. I mean, let's not forget, there are still hostages held in Gaza. Gaza stuff is still going on. I mean, that is still a thing that has to be dealt with. And if you want to start a whole nother war, then you're going to have serious problems on 4 different fronts. And Iran itself doesn't want a war. They do not want to get in a fight when they know that we have said we've got Israel's back. If you guys go to war, we're not going to let Israel fall. We're entering the war. Iran knows they cannot survive that. That would be death to their regime. It would be gone. A lot of people are using this at this moment in time that want to get rid of the Iranian regime. They're saying now's the time to do it. Woo, we got them now. Let's go. They attack Israel. Let's take out the regime. Be very careful about these people who are saying we got to do A, B, C, or D. Look at their motivations. Do they really want to get rid of Iran? And there's no skin off their knuckles because they're not picking up a rifle and going. They're just saying, like, this is it. This is our chance to do this. The bottom line is both sides are looking for deterrence. Iran is looking to deter Israel from blowing up their generals and killing IRGC guys inside Syria. And Israel is looking to deter Iran from using those very same guys to coordinate with the Axis of Resistance to attack Israel. What remains to be seen is how this deterrence theory is going to work out in the real world, and whether the escalation itself is going to rise to the level of a regional war inside the Middle East. Only time will tell. And that's my hot take.